Hi everyone, so welcome to today's video. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to do a bit of a different type of video. I recently saw that the Ulta beauty brand has rebranded their in-house makeup line. So if you're not familiar with the Ulta beauty makeup, they actually have an entire range of makeup products. So you've got primers, foundations, concealers, powders, bronzers, blush, tons of different lip options that you can choose from, single eyeshadows, palettes, brushes, tools, hair care, body care. They've got it all. It's a huge brand, and I, as an ex-Ulta employee from many, many years ago, we're talking about early 2000s, I remember seeing the Ulta products, especially on display or during the sales, and people really love their products. And I have tried some of their makeup here and there over the years, but it's been such a long time. And I do feel like this rebrand of the packaging, which you'll see if you've noticed their previous makeup packaging and components, they're totally different now. And it's better, it looks better. The aesthetic vibe is so different and I like it. From looking at the photos on the Ulta app, it looks like it's just a rebrand of the product components and the labels, the logo, the writing on the components. Not necessarily a reformulation. Maybe some things have been reformulated, but there are some things that honestly, makeup-wise, have caught my attention, and maybe sometime down the line I can try those products out. But I did notice that they've rebranded and changed the look entirely of their makeup brushes. And they've got lots of different brushes for every step of your routine. And I thought, why not try some of their brushes out since it's been a long time? And then let's pick some brushes that honestly can do more than just one thing. Not just an eyeshadow brush, not just a bronzer brush, but what brush from what they offer can give me more options, things that I can do more with, streamline the process of getting ready, keep my makeup collection in my makeup bag more minimal. So I found that they have double-ended brushes. I'm going to show you some up-close shots of the brushes so you can see what they look like a little bit better. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the double-ended powder brush. This is actually the number 144. It's called the dual-ended finishing powder. And this is one of the brushes that I thought could do more than just finishing powder. I can use this, since it's double-ended, for blush, for highlight, for powder, for bronzer, a finishing powder for blending. It's super soft the way the bristles feel. They are really, really soft. This brush specifically like this double-ended one is $20, and you get essentially two different brush heads. I paid the 40 bucks and I have 4 different types of brushes here. So I do feel like it's not super expensive when you think about how many brushes you're getting in a double-ended, which is the sort of fun part of having a double-ended brush. It's like getting 2 brushes in one. So I do have a lot of plans for this brush, and by the looks of it, I feel like I can actually do a lot with this. I love the sort of light, sort of beige handle here, the soft, somewhat looking champagne color metal ferrule, the UBC that's embossed in here. I do like the whole vibe of this, and the look of this is so much better. And honestly, it looks pretty. I'm just being completely honest. This looks prettier to me now than their previous brushes, and it got my attention. So the rebrand is doing what it's supposed to do, grab someone's attention. And the other brush that I picked up is the 132. This one is labeled as the dual-ended multi-sculpting brush. As you can see in the up-close shots, this brush has a different look to it. This is one that you would want to use for your base complexion products. So think of primers, foundations, skin tints, concealers. You can also use this for cream-based products or liquid products for blush, for highlight, for contour. You can do a lot with this. So you have 2 opposite ends. The larger side is going to be great for the foundation application and for blending. And you can also use this side for applying your contour, getting it right where you want it. Because of the size, it's not too small, but it's also not too big either. So I feel like it's just right to fit right in the grooves of where you would naturally put your contour product. If you flip the brush to the opposite end, you will see a brush that looks like the other side, but smaller. So think of this as a brush that you can use for concealer, for eye brightener. You can use this to apply your contour. If you do nose contour, even if you just contour like your hollows of the cheekbone, you can use this and kind of do a stripe and then flip it over, blend it out. So I feel like this brush can do a lot of different things. So with that whole thought in mind, I figured why not try this theory out, turn the camera on, film it, try the brushes, see what it's like to use an Ulta brush again, and actually see how much of my makeup I can do with just 2 brushes. So if that sounds good, then continue watching and let's see how this look turns out. So I've got my primer already applied, and I'm going to list and link every product that I'm using in today's look. I've also done my brows off camera. Again, I'm going to link that product for you. So we're going to start off with the foundation brush, the 132 Sculpting Brush. I'm going to use the larger side, and I'm going to be working off of the back of my hand. What I've done is I've mixed a foundation with a dark bronzing drop product so that I can customize my color so that it matches better my neck, my chest, and my arms. So I'm going to be working with that mixture from the back of my hand, and I'm going to dip that brush, and I'm just going to work this product into the bristles. And then I'm going to start sort of tapping this into the skin and blending this as I normally would with any sort of foundation brush or any tool, just getting it nicely applied, a thin light layer, just to even out the skin tone and just give me a more even, more perfected type of look. I'm not really going for a full coverage type of look today, but I definitely can see this brush working for that because it's applying the product really nicely, and it's also blending and creating a kind of smooth look to the skin without leaving a bunch of streaks, which is one of the things that may be of concern to some people using brushes, especially if you're used to using a sponge. Sponges tend to blend and apply product really nicely, and brushes sometimes, depending on the bristles and the way it's made, can leave streaks. And that's why I don't use typical foundation brushes, just because I don't like the streaks. And I'm so used to using specific brushes for my foundation that I am kind of a little bit hesitant trying new ones just because I don't like dealing with the streaks. But if I'm looking up close, I don't really see a lot of that happening with this brush, which is a great thing. Another good thing about using brushes instead of a sponge, your brushes tend to make a small amount of product go a long way versus sponges. They do absorb a lot of product, so you end up using more in the end. So it helps cut down on using excess product and wasting product. So it's all good things. And this brush is doing a great job. And that size really allows me to go around my brows since they are already filled in without disrupting any of the product that I have applied already. I can also still use that and go right between my brows without worrying about ruining what I've already done. I can go over my lids really easily to kind of conceal and even out the skin tone. You can also use this size for under the eyes as well. So I think we may try that as well with blending after we try the small side. The way the bristles are shaped and the cut of this allows you to go around the sides of the nose for better blending around your lip line. You can go down the jawline with it if you're going to contour. I mean, I feel like this is a really, really good size brush. Moving on to conceal, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mix a few different shades. I'm going to take the smaller side of the 132 brush. I'm going to start with the lightest color of my concealer. This is the shade that I'm going to use for brightening purposes. I'm using this small side to blend and apply right where I want the brighter shade. And I'm just kind of tapping and placing that. I'll go back and blend here in a minute. I'm going to take the darker concealer and place that right on this outer part here. And I'm just going to kind of tap and go back and forth just to blend those shades a little bit better. And I do this, if you're curious, because my concealers don't really match my skin tone right now. I have some dark shades, some lighter shades, and none of them are quite exact matches. So I'm just trying to mix my products so I can use as many as possible and also just make use out of all my colors. So now that I have that placed, I feel like this small side is good for getting right underneath the lash line and right out here. Also right in this inner corner, I feel like that's really, really good size for applying a brightener or a corrector. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to switch back to that larger side and use that to blend that concealer a little bit better and blend the concealer into the foundation. So that large side is really helping me out with blending and making that a more seamless transition between concealer and foundation. And I also like how this is not eating up a lot of product, so I am retaining the coverage that is coming from that concealer, and they are really good concealers. One was a serum concealer, and the other one has some skincare benefits into it as well, but it has a little bit more coverage, and I would say it's more of a fuller coverage, and I feel like I'm getting exactly that. And now with that same larger side, I'm going to go right over my lids just to kind of prime and get them ready for eyeshadow today. And again, I'm not having any issues with streaks or blending with this brush. So I am really, really happy with how this is looking so far and the performance of this brush. So now we have to do some setting of the under eyes because it does crease on me, and I'm going to go back to that other brush. This is the 144, that dual-ended powder brush. And we're going to be using this a lot for the next couple of steps in this makeup routine. This is the part that's going to be interesting for me because I typically use my beauty sponge to apply powder to set my concealer. I do like the way that makes the under eye look. but I also have really enjoyed using powder puffs over the last couple of months, and that's pretty much what I use. It's very rare when I use a brush to set initially, so I'm excited to see how the small side of this brush is going to work. And again, that's that 144 brush. I'm going to use a translucent loose powder. I'm going to tap off the excess, and I'm going to just press this and look up and just press right over my concealer. And that pressing motion is going to help keep my concealer in place and not disrupt what I've already blended. And I'm going to be able to kind of keep that powder right where I want it, directly under the eyes. And that definitely did its job. And it's a good size where I'm covering that entire area with the surface of this brush. And I'm going to use that same loose powder, tapping off the excess to set that concealer that I use on my lids. I'm going to switch it over to that larger side, and I'm going to use a pressed finishing setting powder that's supposed to give an airbrush flawless finish to the skin. And I'm going to use that fluffy side to apply that all over my face. I will be coming back to that pressed setting powder. It's a finishing powder that can be used, as I did today, to set the foundation, but it also can be used to finish the face before doing some setting spray. So I'm going to come back to that later on. But I feel like this brush definitely applied the powder, and I can tell that a thin amount of powder was placed onto the skin over the foundation. So it is picking up product and depositing it really nicely onto the skin. So now let's take this a step further and go back to this brush that I use for foundation for some cream-based products. I'm going to be working with a cream bronzer on the back of my hand. I'm going to use the warmth of my hand to warm up that product and get that coated onto the bristles, just kind of patting that in. And I'm going to start applying this in my typical go-to areas where I apply some contour. And then because this is a more bronzy shade, I am going to bring it up a little bit higher on the higher points of the cheek. I'm going to go around the hairline as well. And then I'm going to take what's left on the back of my hand, and I'm going to go over the nose and create a sort of W pattern, as you can see where I'm stippling with the brush, to mimic the way the sun would naturally create a sort of bronzy tan on the skin. And then I'm going to take a little bit on the side of my nose to do some contouring, just so I can demo that. It's not something I typically do. I'm going to switch over to the other side and use what's left from this bronzer and just do a slight kind of contour for the nose. Again, it's not something I do, but I wanted to show you this and demo this, that you can do this with this brush. And then if you do like to use contour on the jawline, you can go back into that larger side and run that around the jawline. You can also take that small end, flip over the brush, and use that cream bronzer to contour your lower lip. You can also use it, it's a little larger for the top part. I think it's better for the bottom lip, which creates the illusion of a fuller lip line. But that was just incredibly easy, no streaks, no weird skipping or dragging. And I did apply this cream product over a pressed powder. And I feel like sometimes that can be a mistake depending on the formulas, putting creams over powders. But I also think it has to do with the tool as well that you use. If it's not the right brush, or if it's not cut the right way, or the bristles are just not performing very well, it can go wrong. And I do feel like this brush definitely helped out, and it kept everything in place beautifully. I'm going to go with that same bronzer on the top part of my upper lid and crease area, just a little bit. And there you have it. I have some bronzer, a little bit lighter. It's blended into the foundation. I'm just going back and forth trying to use up what I have on the back of my hand to not waste product. Now to set this, this is something I've been doing quite a bit on my off time, just doing some extra bits that I typically don't do every day. I'm a mom on the go. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids, and I just don't have time to do a lot of these extra steps. So the extra steps that I'm going to do today is using some powders and creams, kind of a layering technique. I've done this a couple of times, and the result is incredibly beautiful and very long wearing. So I've done the cream bronzer, so now I'm going to go in with a pressed bronzer to sort of set that cream that I applied. And I'm going to go back to that larger, the fluffier side, or you could also use a small one. So let's start with the small one and see what that looks like. And I'm just going to do a thin, very light layer of this. And I do like this size for applying bronzer to the forehead. And you can do a little bit across the nose. Let's go to that larger side. pick up some of that bronzer and then just lightly dust that. Yes, I like this. I like the large side for the cheeks, and the smaller side you can use it for the forehead, sides of the nose, and the jawline. So I'm really loving these brushes so far. I'm so glad that I bought them. Next up is blush, and I'm working off of the back of my hand yet again. And I put that blush formula on the back of my hand to kind of warm it up. This formula that I'm going to use is very unique and different. It's actually a powder finish, so it's a powder blush in a stick form, so it's very bizarre. You think of a stick blush is more of a cream finish, and it's kind of like a creamy texture, but this goes on, blends, and wears, and feels like a powder, but it's a stick. So it's really cool, unique. I'm going to use that larger side of the 132 brush, so the sculpting brush. Again, working that into the bristles, and then I'm going to pat this right over the top and just use this as the base layer of my blush today. And as you can see, we're going over cream and powder bronzer, and again, no skipping, no dragging. It's blending out beautifully. Look at that. And then whatever's left, I'm going to go over the nose and across the forehead very slightly, just a little bit, to create the effect of a kind of sunburnt look. I'm here for that. I love the way that looks. It's so youthful and just so nice, and I just keep doing it. And sometimes I will take this and go across the upper crease or lid area, especially if I'm gonna do a quick makeup look. I will do this with bronzers, with blushes, and then maybe just a little bit of liner and mascara and call it a day. But you can see it blended the cream in just beautifully. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to do some extra things in today's video as far as layering creams and products with powder to sort of do a layering technique. I'm going to go back into that finishing powder brush, the 144, and I'm going to use a blush that is very similar in tone to what I just applied. And I'm going to sort of set that cream. And I'm using a formula that is one of my absolute favorites. It's the Armani Luminous Silk Blushes in number 51. I adore this formula. It's one of my go-tos for a quick, easy kind of blush that looks very natural, like it's coming from within my cheeks, and a natural flush, and it's beautiful. The formula is spectacular. So I'm going to use that to set the cream blush, which by the way is the Polite Society. I think these are the Polite Pops. That's what these are called. That was the color that I used, the cream in Paris. And then I'm going to go to the larger side and just do one final blend. And just kind of blend this out a little bit. Love. So beautiful. Those two blushes together are absolutely incredible. And this one from Polite Society doesn't necessarily need to be set. It's a powder finish in a stick form, so you don't have to do that. But I figured I'd pull out all the stops today because I'm demoing these two brushes, and I figured why not? I'm going to go back over to that setting powder that I used initially, that pressed powder. I'm going to use that small side of the 144 to just kind of blur the pores in this area here. And I like doing this at the end to help with more blending. And if I got too close with my blush to the nose, I can use this kind of like an eraser. And I like to do that with a fluffy brush. And also clean up if I got a little bit too low down close to the jawline with my blushes or bronzer. Sometimes when I'm rushing, it can get messy. It just happens. And right through the forehead, between the brows, just kind of smooth that out a little bit more. And then from here, we get to do a little bit of highlight because I can't skip highlight. It's not in me to skip highlight. I'm going to use the one from Give Beauty, the Check My Glow in the Platinum Cowgirl. I absolutely love this formula. And I'm going to use the small side of the fluffy dual-ended brush, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of each shade. And then I'm going to just kind of tap that on in my usual go-to areas that I like to highlight. This is a little bit larger, I will say, for highlighting. It's going to add a little bit more highlight, a little bit lower than I typically go. I kind of stay a bit closer, so I use something smaller. I do feel like this would definitely be a better size. However, this small size from the number 132 brush, the sculpting brush, is going to apply a lot more product because it's so densely packed, the bristles. I like something a little bit fluffier and softer. So what I'll do from here on out going forward with this brush is I'll use just the tip of it and maybe just lay it on its side a little bit and just lightly graze the skin and not lay it down entirely flat so that it doesn't cover too much of my cheeks, because I don't like a lot of shimmer on my actual cheeks itself. I just like to keep it kind of higher up for just that typical highlighting area. And then I'm going to use that same brush, the tip of it, down the center of the nose, the tip of the nose, right around here in the temples a little bit, whatever's left on my brush. Go across the lids really quickly. And there you have it. And here is a look at my entire complexion routine, start to finish, done with just these two brushes. The only thing that I did off camera is use the L'Oreal Infallible setting spray. I have been using this nonstop ever since I got it. It's literally like hairspray for your face, but it actually does work. So if you're gonna go to Ulta to pick up some of their brushes, you might as well pick this up because it's actually very, very good. And it keeps everything locked into place. It does not move or budge at all. So back to the brushes, as you can see, I was able to do everything for my entire base complexion. Of course, I didn't do eyeshadows, but I did use these to apply some of those types of products to the upper crease area, like blush, bronzer, and a little bit of highlight. So ideally, I could just throw on some liner and lashes and be done and call it a day. And of course, do a lip look to kind of pull it all together. But just being able to do my entire face with two brushes, I think is pretty great. And I feel like I didn't miss out on anything specific. I didn't feel like I needed to reach for my collection of brushes for absolutely anything. I did everything except like the primer. Obviously, you have to use your fingers for that. I mean, you could use this larger side of the, I keep forgetting the numbers, the 132, the sculpting brush, to apply your primers if you like doing that. But I typically use my fingers anyways for primer, so that doesn't really apply to me personally. So having these two brushes, I do think, looking at the lineup of what they offer, these two brushes to me seem like the most versatile. The ones that can do the most, the multi-purpose type of brushes. I'm all about using different things to kind of multi-purpose and kind of streamline that process, as I mentioned earlier, and really get the makeup done, because I am a busy mom and I don't have time to have 15 different brushes for different purposes. I wish I had that time every single day, but I don't. So having these brushes really does help with my routine, and I have to hand it to Ulta. I feel like the quality of the bristles are really great. There's no streaks. It flawlessly blended in every single product. I mean, I don't have any complaints whatsoever with the application today, and I hope that this was helpful. If you were curious about these new brushes, you saw them on the Ulta website or the app, or even in person, if you were curious about the quality and how they actually perform, I hope that this video was able to answer those questions for you. The description box is going to have everything listed and linked for you down below in case you want to shop some of these products for yourself. And I appreciate you so much for being here, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this in the future. I post videos every week, every Tuesday and every Friday, so you see me twice a week. You can also be friends with me on Instagram. My username always pops up here on the screen, and I hope to see you there and be friends with you. Thanks for being here and for watching. Take care, you guys, and we'll talk very soon. Bye-bye.